So I'm very excited about our speaker today. Sarah SHEAHAN is the St. Charles organizer with Abortion Action Missouri. Abortion Action Missouri was founded in 1969 as the Committee for Legal Abortion in Missouri. Their name has changed, but their work has remained the same. Sarah and her team of St. Charles volunteers knocked on over 20,000 doors in St. Charles County in 2024 because they understood St. Charles was critical to passing Amendment 3, and what happens here affects the rest of the state. St. Charles is home to some of the most anti-LGBTQ and anti-abortion politicians in Missouri. Sarah is dedicated to reaching out to their constituents to protect reproductive freedom and break the anti-abortion supermajority in the Missouri legislature, so Missourians can have control over their lives and future. Please welcome Sarah.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here today. The Ethical Society was a big part of Amendment 3 passing, or was instrumental. I know the St. Louis chapter did signature drive-thrus, and many members were eager to collect signatures, put up yard signs, and talk to their neighbors about why abortion access is important. So I'm excited to talk to you all here today about where we stand right now with Amendment 3 and protecting abortion access in our state, because St. Charles County is instrumental. So just quick question, if we need to go to the next slide, do I just tell you next slide, or is there like a clicker?
You have the answer on the podium.
Perfect. Okay, great. Okay, awesome. So by the end of the meeting, you all will be more aware about what's going on in the Missouri legislature right now regarding abortion access, especially as it pertains to Senate Joint Resolution 33. You will learn about the petition open letter that community residents in St. Charles have started to fight back against Senator Schnelting from St. Charles' effort to reinstate a total abortion ban. And then you'll learn about our delegation of constituents in Senate District 23, which is the eastern part of St. Charles. We are sending a delegation next Thursday, March 27th, to Senator Schnelting's office to deliver those petitions and demand that he withdraw his dangerous abortion ban bill, SJR 33. And then we'll talk a little bit about why it's important to talk about abortion access and how to talk about it without stigma. And then we'll talk about next steps and how you all can get involved in protecting our reproductive freedom in this state. So just a little bit about Abortion Action Missouri. Abortion Action Missouri, formerly NARAL, also formerly Pro-Choice Missouri. We've changed our name a couple of times over the years. We're the leading grassroots pro-abortion advocacy organization in the state. We envision a world with stigma-free abortion access and reproductive freedom for all. Our mission is to foster and sustain a Midwest movement to take back control of our bodies, lives, and futures. So St. Charles County is, and the members of our little chapter out here in St. Charles is mainly made up of folks in Senate District 2 and Senate District 23. And it is a volunteer-led effort. As we said, we knocked over 20,000 doors in St. Charles just last year to collect signatures to get abortion access on the ballot with Amendment 3. Abortion Action Missouri really spearheaded the effort to get Amendment 3 on the ballot. We formed a coalition with the ACLU and Planned Parenthood of Great Plains and made history along with you all. It took all of us to get there to legalize abortion access in just 10 months. And that's after we had a total ban in place in Missouri since 2018. And so over 11,000 people in the state annually were having to go out of the state to access care. And so we are going to talk about the ongoing efforts that we're doing right now, because we're not just stopping at passing Amendment 3. We are going to continue to build a movement to ensure that no politician is going to roll back our wins or ever ban abortion again in our state. We're organizing to ensure every person in our state can get the safe, accessible, stigma-free care that they need to make decisions about their bodies, lives, and futures. So, just to get into our agenda for the day, we'll talk a little bit about, excitingly, the Planned Parenthood clinics in Columbia were able to reopen for the first time since 2018. And so now folks can access abortion care, procedural abortion care, up to 13 weeks, which is really important for people in the center of our state. We'll talk about recent attacks on Amendment 3 with SJR 33 and HJR 54. Talk about that March delegation that we're having next week to demand that our senator in Eastern St. Charles, Senator Schnelting, that he back off and understand the clear mandate that his voters set when 56% of his voters voted yes on Amendment 3 in November. We'll talk about the significance of storytelling in fighting back and humanizing this issue, and talk about next steps. Yes, incredibly exciting. Columbia was able to reestablish care after a 7-year lapse. And I know that Kansas City was able to open and provide some procedural care right now. St. Louis's Planned Parenthood will open soon. They're setting up staffing and infrastructure. And then a really big deal is Springfield is hoping to open up next, because Southern Missouri has not been able to access care for close to 10 years, which is a really big deal. And we know that Planned Parenthood is the major provider in our state for accessing care, so they're very important, and we support the work that they do. So, to give you all an important Missouri legislative update, in February, Melanie Stinton from House District 133 in Springfield, she introduced HJR 54, which was a resolution to put another near-total abortion ban on the ballot, and include a gender-affirming care ban for minors as well on the ballot. In the state of Missouri right now, there is already a ban on gender-affirming care. It has a sunset clause, so it will eventually expire. This was an effort to put basically a gender-affirming care ban and another abortion ban into our state constitution, which is very scary. But there was a hearing on February 4th for this bill, and almost 2,000 Missourians, thanks to the organizing of Abortion Action Missouri and Planned Parenthood, over 2,000 Missourians submitted a testimony either online or in person, and over 100 people showed up to the hearing, and lots of people testified. It was about 4.5 hours of testimony. It was an incredible experience, and out of that hard work of everyday people, anti-abortion politicians in the legislature got cold feet, because many of their districts supported Amendment 3 that were on that committee, and they still have not voted on it to advance it to the House floor. So that is how we protect our rights in this moment, as we show up and mobilize as these bills evolve, whether it's testifying, calling, or emailing our legislatures. We need to be talking to them right now. So while that was exciting developments, unfortunately, and just a little bit about HJR 54, so it would be a total ban on abortion, and only allow in the cases of rape, incest, medical emergency, or fetal anomaly. In the case of rape and incest, it would only allow a pregnant person 12 weeks past gestation to seek that care, and it would require survivors of sexual violence to go to the police, and at which point there would be a 48-hour investigation, whatever that means. We know that most survivors, it is the most underreported crime in the world, and there's often no witnesses. It's often done in private, so it would have to be seen as legitimate before they would then have a 12-week period to access care. We know that in real life that doesn't actually tangibly provide support for survivors. And so it would also ban in cases of fetal disability, ban public funds, and it was also a gender-affirming care ban for minors. That's really their playbook right now. And so right now we're in a place where Senator Adam Schnelting, they wanted to try to kick it to the Senate to see if it could actually get any traction there. And so Senator Adam Schnelting from St. Charles Senate District 23. He's like the eastern part. He introduced a copycat version of this exact bill, again being a near total ban. And I want to remind you all that Senator Schnelting's constituents voted for Amendment 3 at 56%. So even though he's doing this, we have quite the leverage right now because his voters made a clear mandate in November that they want abortion access and bodily autonomy. And so we're at a place right now where, unfortunately, SJR 33 had a hearing on February 25th. And it was voted out of committee. So at this point, we can anticipate this week, pro-choice politicians, Democrats, will be having to filibuster this and likely be talking for 50 hours straight to block this bill. We'll talk more about what that exactly is going to look like, but this is a moment where we need to show up as St. Charles and make it clear to our anti-abortion senators out here that we didn't elect them to pursue their own agendas. We elected them to follow the will of their people, and we've made a clear mandate. And so, residents in Senator Schnelting's district, Senate District 23, have been circulating an open letter, petition calling on Schnelting to stop ignoring the will of his voters and withdraw his sponsorship of SJR 33. Senator Schroer from Senate District 2, that's the western part of St. Charles. Many of y'all, that might be your senator as well. He is also very anti-abortion, and he co-sponsored this bill. So it is a great time for both of them to be hearing from us right now. Senator Schroer's district voted for Amendment 3 at 50%. So all of St. Charles, even in the House districts, supported Amendment 3 in a majority. So we have the leverage right now to stand up and tell them that we didn't ask them to pursue their own agenda. We are asking them to pursue ours. And so we have this open letter petition. Schnelting is the sole author of SJR 33. So if he withdraws his sponsorship, then this bill dies immediately. Schnelting is pushing SJR 33, like I said, despite the fact that the majority of his voters voted for it. And, you know, we knocked 20,000 doors in Senator Schnelting's district in 2024. So we have lots of people to call upon right now in this moment because we need your help in making as much noise as possible in this moment. And we want you to join us in educating our neighbors as to what is happening. A lot of people are just as upset as you are about what's going on. They're just not aware. And so it's our job to make people be talking about this and humanizing the issue of abortion. So far, our open letter has collected 630 signatures from folks in St. Charles, but our goal is to collect 1,000 from Senate District 23 by next Thursday, March 27th. And so we're going to send a delegation next Thursday to his office in Jefferson City, and we'll talk more about what that looks like. All of next week, anti-abortion groups will be having their lobby days at the Missouri Capitol. And we don't want Schnelting to become emboldened by these groups. He is a man who lives in an echo chamber, and as a result, he is, again, now following his own agenda instead of his voters' agenda. And so, yeah, we're going to send a powerful delegation of his voters to his office next Thursday at the Missouri Capitol. There we will deliver our 1,000.
Can you sign, I think I signed something online. Are you able to?
Yes. So our petition is an online petition. At the end here, I'll give, if we can send a follow-up email, that would be great. But I also have, at the front door here, I have QR codes that you can scan to sign the petition. Once you have that link, you can share that out. I'd love if you shared it to 5 of your pro-choice neighbors. Really, we want these to be signed by folks who are in Schnelting's district, but even if you're not, you know, sign the petition, send it out. We want him to really feel from the breath of his district right now that people are aware of what he's doing and not happy about it. And so, we are going to be sending, this is going to be a moment for us to show up in strength in numbers. And I want to be clear that What Schnelting is doing could not only cost him his reelection, but it will also cost him his colleague's seat in the 2026 election. Every single House rep seat in St. Charles will be up for reelection next year. And, St. Charles residents trusted anti-abortion politicians that they would respect Amendment 3, but instead they have shown that this has been their priority all of the 2025 legislative session, and it's time that we come together to break the anti-abortion supermajority of politicians in the House and Senate. We have no choice but to make it clear that if Schnelting does not stop, the escalation will only continue. Through our collective pressure, we can help him realize that his actions are putting him in political jeopardy and will cost him and his colleagues their jobs. And I want to be clear for folks in Western St. Charles, particularly like the O'Fallon area, Weldon Springs. Senator Shore's seat is up for re-election next year. So all of these people right now, we have the option to apply pressure on them and make it clear that if they don't back off of their extremism, they're going to lose their job. We have options to knock every door in Schnelting's district to let his voters know that what he is doing. We will make it clear to voters that what Schnelting's real priorities are. We're going to have a mid-April rally in St. Charles on April 19th. The location is still to be determined, but that's going to be a really large rally where it's going to be St. Charles and the St. Louis region coming together to put a spotlight on the work that he's doing. And just to kind of give you guys some ease, we're really holding it down in St. Charles, but there are actually several Senate districts across the state where an anti-abortion politician took office, but his district overwhelmingly supported Amendment 3. So Abortion Action Missouri is really buckling down and putting pressure in about 5 different regions across the state that we feel is really important in stopping these bills from going through. St. Charles is one of the most key regions in the state right now to apply pressure, be paying attention, and talking to our legislators in our effort to protect reproductive freedom. Every person in this room must be a critical messenger in this moment in telling our neighbors what Senator Schnelting is doing and talking about why abortion access matters. We must invite our community to stand together to hold Schnelting and Shore accountable. And so, we'd love for you to be there next Thursday. We'll talk more about what that agenda is at the end, and we'd love for you to help us get to 1,000 signatures. So I want to talk a little bit about storytelling. At Abortion Action Missouri, we believe that one of the most powerful weapons in our arsenal is actually our stories. All reproductive healthcare stories, whether your own or the stories of those you love, are crucial to building the futures we deserve, including experiences with abortion, pregnancy, and miscarriage. We know that miscarriage care is abortion care a lot of the time. Your stories can pave a path to ensuring our bodily autonomy in Missouri. And so want to talk a little bit about why storytelling is so impactful. Storytelling has the ability to touch hearts, change minds, and mobilize communities towards action. Storytelling humanizes an issue by putting a face and a personal narrative to the struggles people face. It helps individuals connect with the emotions and experiences of others, fostering empathy and understanding. It also provides a platform for marginalized communities to share their experiences and perspectives. It can also inspire hope, resilience, and perseverance, even in the face of adversity. It helps elevate voices that are often unheard, creating space for dialogue, representation, and social change. I know that often we think of humans as these very rational creatures that are very logical, but in fact, we know that humans are really ruled by emotion. And so when you talk about facts and figures and studies, it's actually very abstract for a lot of people and hard for people to empathize. When you're talking about a hypothetical person having to cross the state and access care, it's a lot easier to dismiss that person and that experience because you're not talking about a real person. Whereas when you're talking about a real individual who needed to cross the barrier, cross into an Illinois, and face so many barriers to accessing care, it's a lot more impactful to people. I know, again, everyone has their own story. How I got into this work is I'm a sexual assault survivor. And that happened to me in college. I was one of the few people that did go to the police. And they didn't treat it like a crime. My school wanted to sweep it under the rug. And I had to pick up the pieces of my life. I was very fortunate that I did not get pregnant from that situation. But it totally changed me. And for about 7 years, I quite frankly never ever talked about that experience, not even to people I dated or anyone in my life. It was slowly through talking to other individuals did I realize how many people were also experiencing gender-based violence in my community, that I realized how important it was to speak out. And prior to getting involved in this campaign, I had previously felt like the most important, most powerful thing I'd ever done in my life was testifying in front of the Senate when they put the abortion ban, when they were hearing the abortion ban bill all the way in 2018 before it went into place. I actually sat in front of, on the committee was former Senator Bill Eigel from St. Charles. He's very anti-abortion. Now Congressman Bob Onder, who's extremely anti-abortion from St. Charles. Senator Koenig from Kirkwood, very anti-abortion. And, it was scary. I mean, I wasn't perfect. I went up there, I was stuttering. But I knew I had to say something because the fact that they did put a abortion ban in place with no exceptions for sexual assault survivors, I knew that was going to engender violence and trap women and pregnant people in abuse. And so I knew I had to say something. I wasn't even planning on speaking that day, but I went up there and looked them in the eyes and, told them my story and talked about how I couldn't imagine a politician forcing me to have my abuser's baby. It was terrifying, but literally incredible. And it's one of those moments where your truth is something they can't take away from you. And oftentimes they try to make abortion as a black and white, non-complicated issue. It is a very complicated issue, and that is exactly why a ban will never be humane, never be fair. And so we'll talk a little bit more about why storytelling is so impactful, but it really can break down barriers in complicated situations. Just want to get into a few do's and don'ts about how to talk about abortion access without stigma as you guys navigate these conversations. So, oftentimes, we always talk about abortion in euphemisms. We never say the word abortion. And the result of that is that it creates stigma. We know through research that anti-abortion politicians say the word abortion 4 times the rate that we do. And so they get to control the narrative and the connotation of the word. Abortion is not a dirty word. It is healthcare. It is something that people need, will always need, and is a part of life. So say the word. I'm not the language police, but again, when you're always talking in euphemisms, you're sending a message that there's something wrong with needing to access abortion care. Next, talk about people who have abortions with respect and dignity. We're not here to rank abortions. There are not good abortions and bad abortions. All abortions are valid for whatever reason that a person chooses to access care. So we're not going to talk about it as a necessary evil. It's just a part of life. It's healthcare that people need. Right. Next, center the people who are most impacted and be inclusive. We know that cisgender women are not the only people that get pregnant in our state and need to access abortion care. Trans and non-binary folks can also get pregnant and need to access care. We're at a time right now where there are more attacks on trans individuals in Missouri and across the country. We do not want to further stigmatize those folks and alienate them. So you can talk about abortion as, people who are accessing abortion, people who are accessing reproductive health care, women and pregnant people, or just pregnant people. You'll often hear me say both. I'll talk about the impact it has on women and pregnant people in our state, just to include everyone. Do not repeat and or amplify anti-abortion language. We often do that all the time just because that's the language, the words we've heard, we just don't know better. I know one example is often you'll hear late-term abortions. We really don't use that term. Third trimester abortions is how we reference those scenarios. And I'm sure you guys can think of a whole host of other words and language that really serve to stigmatize abortion.
Pro-life.
Pro-life, yes. We often talk about it as either you're anti-abortion or you're pro-abortion or pro-choice. And you'll hear us too. We really try not to talk about this issue as a Democrat versus Republican issue. We know about 25% of Republicans in the state of Missouri support abortion access. And so we really want to make this a nonpartisan issue. So yeah, we'll say, anti-abortion politicians or pro-abortion politicians, because, abortion is something that people of all different walks of life need and support. And then lastly, use medically accurate terminology, and that can look like all different things. But again, talking about abortion, like talking about the 11,500 people in the last year who needed to cross state lines, it's really abstract to resonate with that and connect and empathize. But instead, just hearing the story about one Missourian who had to cross state lines and the extreme, barriers they had to go through can actually be a lot more impactful. Oftentimes people dismiss research studies, but when you're telling your story and you're like, no, I know someone who is impacted, or I myself was impacted, they can't take that away from you. So storytelling is a really impactful way to get through to people. Next, I just want to go through, just a few more things. We kind of talked about these. Instead of saying anti-choice, say anti-abortion, because that's what we mean. Research shows the term choice or anti-choice or pro-choice isn't really as palatable to people anymore. Anti-abortion politicians support lots of different choices that people make, and so we want to get specific about what we're talking about. Instead of saying no one is pro-abortion, just say abortion is healthcare. That's really the message and focus that we want to have. I'm pro-abortion just like I'm pro-cancer research. I'm pro people having access to healthcare. I'm pro people getting an education. That's how I'm pro-abortion. Instead of women or women's healthcare, again, pregnant people, women and pregnant people, and just referring to it as reproductive health. You'll often hear us talk about reproductive freedom in the state, which includes abortion access, but so many things, right? Like a living wage is a reproductive freedom issue. You've got to be able to have a living wage to be able to be ready to expand your family. Childcare, sex ed, contraception, reproductive freedom is a large umbrella of different things. Instead of saying safe, legal, and rare, just say abortion should be legal and accessible to everyone. Again, we don't want to talk about it as a necessary evil. Abortion care is miscarriage care. There will always be abortions. It will always be a necessary part of life. Again, we are at an exciting part where, again, our stories are going to be really important to our strategy moving forward. Primarily, our goal right now is to prevent the legislature from passing anti-abortion legislation, namely HJR 54 and SJR 33. To do that, we need Democratic senators to filibuster to prevent SJR 33 from being passed. So not only is it important to reach out to our anti-abortion politicians, but we want to give a kudos to our pro-choice, pro-abortion politicians, because they're going to work really, really hard in a very stressful environment in these next coming weeks to protect our rights. We had a meeting with Senator McCreary about 2 weeks ago. She's one of the most powerful Democrats right now in the legislature. And what she told us is that Democrats are really exhausted right now, and there's a lot of pressure for them to keep the agenda moving. But we also know that right now Republicans are really getting along. It's not an election year, so there's more solidarity amongst them right now. But she made it clear to us that this strategy of pressuring Schnelting and Shore and districts that overwhelmingly supported Amendment 3 is our best strategy in preventing them from being emboldened to push these bills. We want to drag these bills out as much as possible because we have 10 weeks left of the legislative session this year. We just need to get through the next 10 weeks, and then we can take a breath and a sigh of relief because we can look back and say that we blocked these bills. Right now in the state of Missouri, it'll be up to the Missouri Supreme Court to ultimately decide. Even before the abortion ban was put in place, the legislature had, over the last 10, 15 years, created a lot of laws that essentially whittled away access to the point that before the ban, St. Louis, the Forest Park location, was the only clinic in the state of Missouri that you could go to access an abortion. But it required a 72-hour window. So for most working pregnant people outside of the St. Louis region, they couldn't wait 3 or 4 days in St. Louis. So the majority of Missourians were going to Illinois well before the ban. And so now we've got to take care of all these pre-existing, what we call trap laws. And so in a preliminary stage, a judge has struck down more of them than has ever happened in any state. But it's up to the Missouri Supreme Court to ultimately decide. But the judge was able to make a ruling that allowed clinics to reopen slowly but surely here. That care will at least be protected through the year. The Missouri Supreme Court case we don't really expect to happen this year, so we can breathe a little easy after the session, but we've got to come together right now to protect our rights. Yes, again, like, Democrats will be filibustering. We have supplied them with lots of stories of our people to read aloud to the Senate floor for the 50 hours that we expect them to probably have to filibuster. We also know through talking to Mercury that a strategy of anti-abortion politicians is they have what is called a formal calendar and an informal calendar. The legislature knows what to expect on the formal calendar, but often more controversial bills are put on the informal calendar. And so all of a sudden for the day, the majority party can be like, we're going to discuss this issue on the informal calendar, and it puts pro-abortion politicians in a lurch where they have no idea when they're going to have to filibuster for the day. So they're exhausted in a state of hypervigilance right now. At any moment, we'll have to filibuster. And so, we need to come together as everyday people as well and do our part in pressuring senators and representatives to block this bill. We are going to, as another big moment outside of this delegation, we are going to have a mid-April rally in St. Charles on April 19th. I will follow up with you guys to give you all that info. But that's a great opportunity to just put a spotlight on what Senator Schnelting is doing and calling him out. Because what he's doing not only affects St. Charles, it affects the entire state. So even people outside of the region should be vested in what's happening right now in this region. We want to, at the end here, I'm going to go through next steps. Out by the door, there is a sheet where I'd love if you all filled out as ways that you can get involved. We have about 4 different teams that folks can get involved in. You're more than welcome to be on more than one team, but they involve canvassing, phone banking, because canvassing is a critical way to get in front of voters. We would not have passed Amendment 3 in St. Charles if we had not knocked doors and had one-on-one conversations. Many of y'all might have seen the swath of misinformation that came out about Amendment 3. Billboards that said, vote no on Amendment 3, stop human trafficking. Just straight lies. Or vote no on Amendment 3, say no to gender reassignment surgery of minors. That is something that we know legal experts have said has nothing to do with Amendment 3, but our opposition had to rely on lies and misinformation to scare voters to vote no on the amendment. And so that is a great way to just educate people, is knocking doors. We had, like I said, knocked 20,000 doors last year, and it was a really important effort. Phone banking is another really critical thing folks can do. We have about 2 phone banks a week over Zoom. I always do a training at the beginning, and then we make about 20 to 40 calls to people we've identified as pro-choice supporters in the district. We're giving them critical legislative updates. Things are dynamic and moving week to week, so people need to know what's going on and be given the opportunity to take action. So you're doing really important work right now, and I can honestly say we would not have passed Amendment 3 in St. Charles if we hadn't phone banked last year. And then there's also the opportunity to help out with recruitment and volunteer support. We know that our power is tied up in how many people are taking action with us right now. The more people we have taking action, the more power and pressure we can apply on our legislators to stand down on their attacks. For instance, we have a delegation next Thursday to Schnelting's office. If only 2 people showed up, that wouldn't be as powerful as, our goal of 20 people coming to this delegation next Thursday. The more people we have, the more it's clear that, we have we have power and leverage in our community over these people that we hire and can fire. And also that includes, we'll talk about it, but volunteer recruitment can also look like tabling events, helping foster partnerships with other organizations. Coalition work really makes the world go round right now. We're going to need all hands on deck in this effort. And so just want to quickly get in, and then also another way to help is telling your story. We are going to be having storytelling trainings that can really help you develop your confidence and persuasive skills in telling your story, whether it's about someone you love or yourself. I know when I knocked doors, I often told the story of a family member of mine who was pregnant. She already had a child and chose to have an abortion because she was thinking about the child that she already had. She was in an abusive relationship, and she needed to make the decision she had to support her child. And you know, her and I have talked often about, had she not had that abortion, would she ever have been able to leave that relationship? When I talk about that story to people on the doors, it really cuts through to people. I talk about too that to this day, the man that she had a child with the first time, he's never paid child support on the child that they have. And so stories like that really cut through to people. Similarly, you know, I have a niece who's transgender, and she's 17 years old. She's been transitioning for the last 5 years, and our family supporting her and allowing her to transition has saved her life. She struggled severely with her mental health, and now that she has our love and acceptance, I don't worry about losing her all the time to her mental health. She's more stable, she's more happy, and really the people that I worry about is politicians who embolden the public to spread hate and violence towards people like her. I just want her to like her life. I just want her to be happy. Storytelling across any of these complicated issues can really break through to people and engender compassion and empathy. So just a little bit about our delegation. Next Thursday, this is a critical opportunity to mount pressure on Schnelting before the vote is cast for SJR 33. SJR 33 could be voted on any day now. Again, knowing that there's only 11 weeks left of session, it can happen very soon. So he needs to be hearing from us. Next Thursday, the 27th, we will meet at the Missouri Capitol at 9:30 a.m. We're going to carpool together, so if you're interested and you fill out a sheet out there, I'll follow up with you and make sure you get in touch with carpooling. If you want to drive separate, you can. I encourage folks to get there 10 to 15 minutes early before 9:30 for time to park. There's free parking down the street, and I'll share all that info when folks sign up. We'll meet at the Missouri Rotunda. That's the circular room that when you go in and go through security, that's the room right there. We will go through a run day of the day, including goals and expectations. Again, the goal is to have 20 people to come with me next Thursday to this delegation. So far, we have had 10 people sign up, but I know that we can get more. We will be delivering, we will go through a run through, and then around 10:10, we will head to Schnelting's office. We'll deliver the signatures to him, take photos before and after, because we want people to hear about this. This is really important to promote. In the meantime, though, I ask that if you guys share this delegation link out to people, don't post it on social media. If Schnelting knows we're doing this, he'll hide from us on Thursday. And so we want it to be a surprise. We'll be prepared for all the different scenarios. If Schnelting is trying to not meet with us on Thursday, we'll make it clear that we're going to continue to escalate our pressure, that if he doesn't do the right thing, things are only going to get harder for him. And we'll deliver the signatures to him. And by having a packed room of his constituents, that's a powerful way for us to apply pressure in this critical moment. As I said, the more people we have taking action, the more pressure we can apply. It's imperative right now that we make Schnelting see that what he's doing is very politically risky for his career and for St. Charles. Then we'll have folks go pair off and go and talk to their representatives briefly. Really, you're just going to go and say, I'm a constituent. I'm concerned about what's happening to overturn Amendment 3. I want to remind you that your voters in your district overwhelmingly supported Amendment 3. So if some sort of bill comes across your desk, I fully expect you to vote no. Because we understand that if this passes in the Senate, we've got to be ready to kill the bill in the House. And again, we have some leverage knowing that all of the House seats are up for re-election next year. So these are the conversations we need to be having, whether in person at the delegation or calling and emailing your legislators right now. And, in January, we came to the Capitol and talked to some House reps. One of the conversations that really sticks with me was with Representative Scott Miller from Harvester. Folks came in there, they were so nervous, but every single person told a story because they just got that empowered when we came together. And Representative Miller said to us, if I had my way, I'd overturn the entire amendment. But we came in there and told him how many of his voters voted for it. And he said, yeah, I looked at that, and so I won't be voting to overturn Amendment 3 this year. That compromise would not have happened had we not come to that room and spoke to him, and had we not knocked doors and organized his district in 2024. And that was everyday people doing that, who a lot of folks who've been working with me have never even gotten involved in politics in their life before, but the politics are personal this year. We want him to maintain that stance, and so that means we need to continue to pressure him. Our goal is to get 20 people. Who can join me for this important meeting to hold Senator Schnelting accountable and help kill this abortion ban bill next Thursday? Awesome.
Is it only the people you're only looking for constituents of that?
Yes, I am, but I want to be clear that Senator Schwar's district is up for re-election, and so there is critical work that we are going to be doing, so I'd really like to continue to work with you all because we have lots of opportunities to air out some of the extremism in our community here. I'm clear that just by making races more competitive, that is a way that we can air out the extremism, is when, people like Senator Bill Eigel felt emboldened to say a lot of the hateful stuff he said because he won by 15 points in his last election. We worked really hard to make narrow the gap to now just 10 points in 2024. So we'll continue to make these races more competitive. In order for this event to be powerful, we need more signatures. So far we have about 630, but we want to reach our goal of 1,000. So outside, you'll have a QR code and it'll have a link at the bottom that you can enter. I'd really appreciate y'all's homework for the day is to go home and send this to 5 people in your network in St. Charles. This is just a way also to educate people about what is going on. And so y'all can grab that flyer on your way out, as well as this is the QR code to come to the delegation next Thursday. Even if you can't come, you're playing a really critical role by sharing this to your pro-choice neighbors. We're not sharing on Facebook, but if you have people in mind, invite them to this opportunity. I'm happy my contact info is at the bottom, so I'm happy to help have a one-on-one conversation to go over the day's agenda and our goals. I know I'll be following up with everyone individually before we go out there, so people are ready and prepared for the day. And then just to talk about our phone banking efforts, we have a flyer that folks can fill out about ways they can get involved. One is attending our April 19th rally. Let us know, and we'll follow up with you with details about that day's event. Phone banking over Zoom with us. Be a critical messenger right now. Organize your community through either door knocking, tabling, and then volunteer recruitment, organize your community through door knocking or petition gathering, and then volunteer recruitment can be helping us sit down, have over coffee to get volunteers enrolled in. Often I meet people, we have base meetings month to month, every third Thursday of the month, to enroll people into what we're doing, but I also sit down with people over coffee or at a library, and I'd be happy to train you up so that you can help us bring new volunteers in too. And then lastly, if you're interested in sharing your story, we have lots of different opportunities at meetings, over the media, to politicians directly. It's really important work, and I'm happy to support you in that if you want more training on that. And so that kind of concludes my spiel for the day. I'm really appreciative that you all are here, and I'm here to take any questions that folks have.